Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So I decided to do, since we're doing Jula Yatra, which is involving the swing ceremony, a few different things to do with the gopis. I felt inspired. So this first one is the gopis' feelings of separation. This is chapter 35 of Krishna book. The gopis of Vrindavan were so attached to Krishna that they were not satisfied simply with the rasa dance at night. They wanted to associate with him and enjoy his company during the daytime also. When Krishna went to the forest with his cowherd boyfriends and cows, the gopis did not physically take part, but their hearts went with him. And because their hearts went, they were able to enjoy his company through strong feelings of separation. To acquire this strong feeling of separation is the teaching of Lord Chaitanya and his direct disciples, the 6 Goswamis. When we are not in physical contact with Krishna, we can associate with him like the gopis, through feelings of separation. Krishna's transcendental form, qualities, pastimes, and entourage are all identical with him. There are 9 different kinds of devotional service. Devotional service to Krishna in feelings of separation elevates the devotee to the highest perfectional level, to the level of the gopis. It is stated in Srinivasacharya's prayer to the 6 Goswamis that they left the material opulences of government service and the princely status of life and went to Vrindavan, where they lived just like ordinary mendicants, begging from door to door. But they were so much enriched with the gopis' feelings of separation that they enjoyed transcendental pleasure at every moment. Similarly, when Lord Chaitanya was at Jagannath Puri, he was in the role of Radharani, feeling separation from Krishna. Those who are in the disciplic succession of the Madhava Gaudiya Sampradaya should always feel separation from Krishna, worship his transcendental form, and discuss his transcendental teachings, his pastimes, his qualities, his entourage, and his association. That will enrich the devotees to the highest devotional perfection. Feeling constant separation while engaged in the service of the Lord is the perfection of Krishna consciousness. The gopis used to discuss Krishna amongst themselves, and their talks were as follows. "My dear friends," one gopi said, "do you know that when Krishna lies on the ground, he rests on his left elbow and his head rests on his left hand? He moves his attractive eyebrows while playing his flute with his delicate fingers, and the sound he produces creates such a nice atmosphere that the denizens of heavenly planets who travel in space with their wives and beloveds stop their airplanes, for they are stunned by the vibration of the flute. The wives of the demigods who are seated in the plains then become very much ashamed of their singing and musical qualifications. Not only that, but they become afflicted with conjugal love, and their hair and tight clothes immediately loosen." Another gopi said, "My dear friends, Krishna is so beautiful that the goddess of fortune always remains on his chest, and he is always adorned with a golden necklace. Beautiful Krishna plays his flute in order to enliven the hearts of many devotees. He is the only friend of the suffering living entities. When he plays his flute, all the cows, all the other animals of Vrindavan, although engaged in eating, simply take a morsel of food in their mouth and stop chewing. Their ears raise up, and they become stunned. They do not appear alive, but like painted animals. Krishna's flute playing is so attractive that even the animals become enchanted, and what to speak of ourselves." Another gopi said, "My dear friends, not only living animals, but even inanimate objects like the rivers and lakes of Vrindavan also become stunned when Krishna passes with peacock feathers on his head and his body smeared with the minerals of Vrindavan. With leaves and flowers decorating his body, he looks like some hero. When he plays on his flute and calls the cows with Balaram, the river Yamuna stops flowing and waits for the air to carry the dust from his lotus feet. But the river Yamuna is unfortunate like us and does not get Krishna's mercy. The river simply remains stunned, stops its wave, just as we also stop crying for Krishna in expectation. In the absence of Krishna, the gopis were constantly shedding tears, but sometimes when they expected that Krishna was coming, they would stop crying. But when they saw that Krishna was not coming, then again they would become frustrated and begin to cry. Krishna is the original personality of Godhead, the origin of all Vishnu forms, and the cowherd boys are all demigods. So just as Lord Vishnu is always worshipped and surrounded by the different demigods like Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, Indra, Chandra, and others, when Krishna traveled through the Vrindavan forest or walked on Govardhan Hill, he was accompanied by the cowherd boys. While walking, he played his flute just to call his cows. Just by his association, the trees, plants, and other vegetation in the forest immediately became Krishna conscious. A Krishna conscious person sacrifices everything for Krishna. Although the trees and plants were not very advanced in consciousness, by the association of Krishna and his friends, they also became Krishna conscious. They then wanted to deliver everything, whatever they had, namely their fruits, flowers, and the honey incessantly falling from their branches. When Krishna walked on the bank of the Yamuna, he was seen nicely decorated with tilak on his face. He was garlanded with different kinds of forest flowers, and his body was smeared with the pulp of sandalwood and tulsi leaves. The bumblebees became mad after the fragrance and sweetness of the atmosphere and began to hum. Being pleased by the humming sound of the bees, Krishna would play his flute, and together the sounds became so sweet to hear that aquatic birds like cranes, swans, and ducks were charmed. Instead of swimming or flying, they became stunned. They closed their eyes and entered into a trance of meditation and worship of Krishna. One gopi said, "My dear friends, Krishna and Balaram are nicely dressed with earrings and pearl necklaces. They enjoy themselves on top of Govardhan Hill, and everything becomes absorbed in transcendental pleasure when Krishna plays on his flute, charming the whole created manifestation. When he plays, the clouds stop their loud thundering out of fear of disturbing the vibration of his flute. Instead, they respond with mild thunder, and so congratulate Krishna, their friend." Krishna is accepted as the friend of the cloud because both the cloud and Krishna satisfy the people when they are disturbed. When the people are burning due to excessive heat, the cloud satisfies them with rain. Similarly, when people in materialistic life become disturbed by the blazing fire of material pangs, Krishna consciousness gives them a relief like a cloud. The cloud and Krishna have the same bodily color also, are considered to be friends. Desiring to congratulate his superior friend, the cloud poured not water but small flowers and covered the head of Krishna, just like an umbrella, to protect him from the scorching sunshine. One of the gopis told Mother Yashoda, "My dear mother, your son is very expert among the cowherd boys. He knows all the different arts of how to tend the cows and how to play the flute. He composes his own songs and plays them, and to play them he puts his flute to his mouth. When he plays, either in the morning or in the evening, all the demigods, including Lord Shiva, Brahma, Indra, and Chandra, bow their heads and listen with great attention. Although they are very learned and expert, they cannot understand the musical arrangements of Krishna's flute. They simply listen attentively and try to understand, but they become bewildered and nothing more. Another gopi said, "My dear friends, when Krishna returns home with his cows, the footprints of the soles of his feet, with flag, thunderbolt, trident, and lotus flower, relieve the pain the earth feels when the cows traverse it. He walks in a stride which is so attractive, and he carries his flute. Just by looking at him, we become lusty to enjoy his company. At that time, our movements cease. We become just like trees and stand perfectly still, unaware that our hair and clothes are loosening." Krishna had many thousands of cows, and they were divided into groups according to their colors. They were also differently named according to color. When he would prepare to return from the pasturing ground, he would gather all the cows. As the Vaishnavas count 108 beads, which represent the 108 individual gopis, so Krishna would also count on 108 beads to count the different groups of cows. When Krishna returns, he's garlanded with tulsi leaves, a gopi described him to a friend. He puts his hand on the shoulder of a cowherd boyfriend and begins to blow his transcendental flute. The wives of the black deer become enchanted upon hearing the vibration of his flute, which resembles the vibration of the veena. The deer come to Krishna and become so charmed that they stand still, forgetting their homes and husbands, like us who are enchanted by the ocean of transcendental qualities of Krishna. The she-deer becomes enchanted by the vibration of his flute. Another gopi told Mother Yashoda, "My dear mother, when your son returns home, he decorates himself with the buds of the kunda flower, and just to enlighten and gladden his friends, he blows his flute. The breeze blowing from the south creates a pleasing atmosphere because it is fragrant and very cool. Minor demigods like the Gandharvas and Siddhas take advantage of this atmosphere and offer prayers to your son by sounding their bugles and drums. Krishna is very kind to the inhabitants of Vrajabhumi, Vrindavan, and when he returns with his cows and friends, he is remembered as the lifter of Govardhan Hill. Taking advantage of this opportunity, the most exalted demigods like Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva come down to offer their evening prayers, and they accompany the cowherd boys in glorifying the qualities of Krishna. Krishna is compared to the moon, born in the ocean of the womb of Devaki. When he returns in the evening, it appears that he is fatigued, but he still tries to gladden the inhabitants of Vrindavan by his auspicious presence. When Krishna returns, garlanded with flowers, his face looks beautiful, adorned with golden earrings. He walks into Vrindavan with a stride just like the elephants and slowly enters his home. Upon his return, the men, the women, and the cows of Vrindavan immediately forget the scorching heat of the day. Such descriptions of Krishna's transcendental pastimes and activities were remembered by the gopis during his absence from Vrindavan. They give us some idea of how attractive Krishna is, not only to human beings, but to all animate and inanimate objects. In Vrindavan, everyone and everything is attracted to Krishna, including the trees, the plants, the water, and the animals like the deer and cows. It is the perfect description of Krishna's all-attractiveness. The example of the gopis is very instructive to persons who are trying to be absorbed in Krishna consciousness. One can easily associate with Krishna simply by remembering his transcendental pastimes. Everyone has a tendency to love someone. That Krishna should be the object of love. And this is the central point of Krishna consciousness. By constantly chanting the Hare Krishna mantra and remembering the pastimes, the transcendental pastimes of Krishna, one can be fully in Krishna consciousness and thus make his life sublime and fruitful. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 35th chapter of Krishna, the gopis' feelings of separation. Would anyone like to make a comment about something they heard in what I just read, or any realizations?
I was just wondering how the water is a child.
What is the personification?
Yeah. And the water may flow towards him. Yeah, it's just... what the thing is that I remember somewhere in one of these stories, it says that they are sort of angry because they can't forget Krishna, because they're angry with him. And my situation is just the opposite. I can't remember.
Isn't there something with that with their eyes?
And then they're mad with Brahma. Well, Brahma. But you tell. It's your idea. No, did you tell you?
Well, I remember is that gopis were very angry with Lord Brahma because with your eyelids, they're always closed and they always want to see Krishna, but they can't because of their eyes.
Just that split second. It's amazing. You read it?
So I think it was saying that the main point is that we can always remember Krishna. Even if we can't be with him, we can always remember his pastimes, which is what the gopis had to do for so many years, just in separation, which increased their love for Krishna.
It's actually that Vipralambha Seva, that service and separation, is a higher taste even than uniting with, being with the Lord. Somehow, feel incomprehensible.
So, what time is it?
It's 8:05.
Okay, so I had a few others picked out. This one is called Songs by the Gopis. One gopi said, "My dear Krishna, ever since you took your birth in this land of Vrajabhumi, everything appears to be glorious. The land of Vrindavan has become glorious, and it is as if the goddess of fortune is personally always existing here. But it is only we who are very unhappy, because we are searching for you, but cannot see you with our greatest effort. Our life is completely dependent upon you. Therefore, we request that you again come to us." Another gopi said, and this is all in separation, just like we were talking about. Another gopi said, "My dear Krishna, you are the life and soul of the lotus flower that grows on the water of the lakes made transparent by the clear rains of the autumn. Although the lotus flowers are so beautiful, without your glance they fade away. Similarly, without you, we are also dying. Actually, we are not your wives, but we are your slaves. You never spent any money for us, yet we are simply attracted by your glance. Now, if we die without receiving your glance, you will be responsible for our deaths. Certainly, the killing of women is a great sin, and if you do not come to us and we die, you will suffer the reaction of sin. So please come see us. Do not think that one can be killed only by certain weapons. We are being killed by your absence. You should consider how you are responsible for killing women. We are always grateful to you because you have protected us many times from the poisonous water of Yamuna, from the serpent Kaliya, from Bakasura, from the anger of Indra and his torments of rain, from the forest fire, and so many other incidents. You are the greatest and most powerful of all. It is wonderful for you to protect us from so many dangers, but we are surprised that you are neglecting us at this moment. Dear Krishna, dear friend, We know very well that you are not actually the son of Mother Yashoda or of the cowherd man Nanda Maharaj. You are the Supreme Personality of Godhead and the Supersoul of all living entities. You have, out of your own causeless mercy, appeared in this world, requested by Lord Brahma for the protection of the world. It is by your kindness only that you have appeared in the dynasty of Yadu. O best of the dynasty of Yadu, if anyone afraid of this materialistic way of life takes shelter at your lotus feet, you never deny him protection. Your movements are sweet, and you are independent, touching the goddess of fortune with one hand and in the other bearing a lotus flower. That is your extraordinary feature. Please, therefore, come before us and bless us with the lotus flower in your hand. Dear Krishna, you are the killer of all the fears of the inhabitants of Vrindavan. You are the supremely powerful hero, and we know that you can kill the unnecessary pride of your devotee, as well as the pride of women like us, simply by your beautiful smile. We are simply your maidservants and slaves. Please therefore accept us by showing us your beautiful lotus-like face. Dear Krishna, we actually have become very lusty, having been touched by your lotus feet. Your lotus feet certainly kill all kinds of sinful activities of devotees who have taken shelter there. You are so kind that even the ordinary animals take shelter under your lotus feet. Your lotus feet are also the residence of the goddess of fortune. Yet you danced on the head of Kaliya's serpent with them. Now we are requesting you to kindly place your lotus feet on our breasts and pacify our lusty desires to touch you. O Lord, your attractive eyes, like the lotus, are so nice and pleasing. Your sweet words are so fascinating that they please even the greatest scholars, who also become attracted to you. We are also attracted by your speaking and by the beauty of your face and eyes. Please, therefore, satisfy us by your nectarian kisses. Dear Lord, words spoken by you or words describing your activities are full of nectar, and simply by speaking or hearing your words, one can be saved from the blazing fire of material existence. Great demigods like Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva are always engaged in chanting the glories of your words. They do eradicate the sinful activities of all living entities in the material world. If one simply tries to hear your transcendental words, he can very quickly be elevated to the platform of pious activities. For the Vaishnavas, your words give us transcendental pleasure, and saintly persons who are engaged in distributing your transcendental message all over the world are first-class charitable persons. This was confirmed by Rupa Goswami when he addressed Lord Chaitanya as the most munificent incarnation because he distributed the words of Krishna and love of Krishna free of charge all over the world. Dear Krishna, the gopis continued, you are very cunning. You can imagine how much we are distressed simply by remembering your cunning smile, your pleasing glance, your walking with us in the forest of Vrindavan, and your auspicious meditations. Your talks with us in lonely places were heartwarming. Now we are all aggrieved to remember your behavior. Please save us. Dear Krishna, certainly you know how much we are saddened when you go out of Vrindavan village and tend to the cows in the forest. How we are afflicted simply to think that your soft lotus feet are being pricked by the dry grass and the tiny stones in the forest. We are so attached to you that we always think simply of your lotus feet. O Krishna, when you return from the pasturing ground with the animals, we see your face covered by your curly hair and dusted by the hoof dust of the cows. We see your mildly smiling face, and our desire to enjoy you increases. O dear Krishna, you are the supreme lover, and you always give shelter to your surrendered souls. You fill everyone's heart. Your lotus feet are worshipped even by Lord Brahma, the creator of the universe. On whoever worships your lotus feet, you, with a doubt, always bestow your benedictions. So kindly be pleased with us and keep your lotus feet on our breasts, and thus relieve our present distresses. Dear Krishna, we are seeking your kisses, which you offer even to your flute. The vibration of your flute enchants the whole world, and our hearts also. Kindly therefore return and kiss us with your mouth of nectar. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 31st chapter of Krishna, Songs by the Gopis. Let me see. I'll start reading the next one, which is called Krishna Returns to the Gopis, which is the whole thing that they've been desiring.
If you could, you could just talk a little bit about how Prabhupada was so careful to explain the difference between mundane pastimes and these, for the benefit, just to remind us.
Well, there's a big difference between these material bodies and our material desires and our material lust and the lust that the gopis were feeling for Krishna. Their lust was based on loving God, loving Krishna, and devotion to him, and increasing that. So they became super attached. And basically it was saying earlier that the 6 Goswamis were always in that same mood, and if we learn more about the 6 Goswamis, they are also in that mood because they were also gopis in the spiritual world. So, but they were here performing pastimes and helping spread Krishna consciousness, helping the Sankirtan mission. So, I think Prabhupada said that if a person has lusty desires, they get purified by reading Krishna book, because it can actually change. It can actually change one's heart by the more meditating on Krishna. Those lusty desires change and become more like desires to serve Krishna. So it's a long process to overcome material desires and lustiness with these senses, but it's super purifying to engage in devotional service. And does anyone have any comment on that, or experience, or realization?
Well, I thought what you explained was very nice, but I heard Prabhupada say, and I don't understand it exactly, but he said that for brahmacharis, if you're experiencing lust, you should meditate on Krishna's eyebrows.
He said you should meditate on Krishna's eyebrows.
Yeah.
That's what Prabhupada said?
Yeah.
If you're a brahmachari
Well,
experiencing...
I guess anyone, but I remember amongst the brahmacharis we used to say that.
Oh, the brahmacharis used to say that. You should meditate on Krishna's eyebrows.
Yes, but I think Prabhupada just said in general, that meditating on Krishna's eyebrows. Does anyone remember hearing that before? I guess I'm the only one who got that mercy. I had special problems.
Brother Krishna?
A couple things came to my mind when we were talking about the gopis, and one of them was when there was a pastime of Prabhupada, and I think it was in London, at the Bhaktivedanta, and there was this recording of Krishna and Prabhupada, in the separation, and the Indian man who plays the
Ravi Shankar.
yeah, his sister. And what Prabhupada made the point of this, you don't want to think, oh, I can find Krishna in the book. And then he gave the example, like you just said, about the 6 Goswamis who were very highly elevated devotees of Krishna, that they weren't saying, oh, I found Krishna, here he is, or something like that. They were always in separation. And ways again, Govardhan, have that separation from Krishna. And the other thing I was remember when you were talking about Krishna and that with Prabhupada, I remember seeing it on the, remember the Prabhupada video, where he would be very into, because he's in the pastime of when he's talking about, especially the one with Mother Yasoda, and he's looking in, Mother Yasoda's looking in Krishna's mouth, and you could see Prabhupada's face and eyes, and like wide open, like you could sense, yes, this is coming from the spiritual world. He's actually experiencing.
And it's just so amazing that we're privy to these, so esoteric, highly exalted, pastimes and personalities, and only by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. It's only to go through that, the spiritual master and then the acharya, that we can have any kind of understanding. If someone just, happened upon this leela, they would have no understanding or appreciation. It's just like the fact that we're going through Prabhupada and come to that.
Yeah, that's first pastime Krishna was mentioning was that you see Prabhupada sitting on the lawn at Bhaktivedanta Manor, and they're playing a song that George Harrison wrote that was inspired by Prabhupada's instruction, and then Ravi Shankar's wife or daughter is singing this song, the song about I'm looking for you. Prabhupada said that you're looking. You don't have Krishna. You're always searching for him. You're always desiring to be with him.
But we can't just approach Krishna like on our own. We have to go through the spiritual master.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
One thing that I appreciate in Krishna is there's always a sense of humor. Like the gopis, even in their lamenting, they can be really funny, because they're saying, Krishna, I know you kill demons with weapons, but you're killing us without a weapon just by your absence. And that's a sin. And if we die, it's on you. So, I really appreciate that Krishna book and Krishna and all these pastimes. There's always some comedy, some sense of humor mixed in with these loving exchanges. What time is it now?
8:20.
I will start on, I think this would be really satisfying to read about Krishna returning to the gopis after they've already expressed so much, they've been so desperate to have Krishna come. So let's see. When Lord Krishna returns to the gopis, chapter 32. When Lord Krishna finally reappeared among the assembled gopis, he looked very beautiful, just befitting a person with all kinds of opulences. In the Brahma Samhita, it is stated, Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Pratibhavita Bhi. Krishna alone is not particularly beautiful, but when his energy, which we know, it's going to say, especially his pleasure energy, represented by Radharani, expands, he looks very magnificent. The Mayavadi conception of perfection and absolute truth without potency is due to insufficient knowledge. Actually, outside the exhibition of his different potencies, the absolute truth is not complete. Ananda Chinmaya Rasa means that his body is a transcendental form of eternal bliss and knowledge. Krishna is always surrounded by different potencies, and therefore he is perfect and beautiful. We understand from the Brahma Samhita and Skanda Purana that Krishna is always surrounded by many thousands of goddesses of fortune. The gopis are all goddesses of fortune, and Krishna took them hand in hand on the bank of the Yamuna. It is said in the Skanda Purana that out of many thousands of gopis, 16,000 are prominent. Out of those 16,000 gopis, 108 are especially prominent. Out of these 108, 8 are still more prominent. Out of those 8 gopis, Radharani and Chandravali are even more prominent, and out of these two gopis, Radharani is the most prominent. When Krishna entered the forest on the bank of the river Yamuna, the moonlight dissipated the surrounding darkness. Due to the season, flowers like Kunda and Kadamba were blooming, and a gentle breeze was carrying the aroma. Due to the aroma, the bees were also flying in the breeze, thinking that the aroma was honey. The gopis made a seat for Krishna by leveling the soft sand and placing cloths over it. The gopis who were gathered there had almost all been followers of the Vedas. In their previous births, during Lord Ramachandra's advent, they had been Vedic scholars who desired the association of Lord Ramachandra in conjugal love. Ramachandra had given them the benediction that they would be present for the advent of Lord Krishna. He would fulfill their desires. During Krishna's advent, the Vedic scholars took birth in the shape of the gopis in Vrindavan. As young gopis, they got the association of Krishna in fulfillment of their previous birth's desire. The ultimate goal of their perfect desire was attained, and they were so joyous that they had nothing further to desire. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita. If one attains the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then he has no desire for anything. When the gopis had Krishna in their company, not only all their grief, but their lamenting in the absence of Krishna was relieved. They felt that they had no desire to be fulfilled. Fully satisfied in the company of Krishna, they spread their cloths on the ground. These garments were made of fine linen and smeared with the red kumkum, which decorated their breasts. With great care, they spread a sitting place for Krishna. Krishna was their life and soul, and they created a very comfortable seat for him. Sitting on the seat amongst the gopis, Krishna became more beautiful. Great yogis like Shiva and Lord Brahma, or even Lord Shesha and others, always try to fix their attention upon Krishna in their hearts. But here the gopis actually saw Krishna seated before them on their cloths. In the society of the gopis, Krishna looked very beautiful. They were the most beautiful damsels within the three worlds, and they assembled together around Krishna. Krishna seated himself beside each of the many gopis, and it may be asked herein how he did that. There is a significant word in this verse, Ishvara. As it is stated in the Bhagavad Gita, Ishvara Sarva Bhutanam. Ishvara refers to the Supreme Lord as the Supersoul seated in everyone's heart. Krishna also manifested this potency of expansion as Paramatma in this gathering with the gopis. Krishna was sitting by the side of each gopi, unseen by the others. Krishna was so kind to the gopis that instead of sitting in their hearts to be appreciated in yogic meditation, he seated himself by their sides. By seating himself outside, he showed special favor to the gopis, who were the selected beauties of all creation. Having gotten their most beloved Lord, the gopis began to please him by moving their eyebrows and smiling, and also by suppressing their anger. Some of them took his lotus feet in their laps and massaged them. While smiling, they confidentially expressed their suppressed anger and said, "Dear Krishna, we are ordinary women of Vrindavan, and we do not know much about Vedic knowledge, what is right and what is wrong. We therefore put a question to you, and since you are very learned, you can answer it properly. In dealings between lovers, we find that there are three classes of men. One class simply receives. Another class reciprocates favorably, even if the lover is very contrary. And the third class neither acts contrary nor answers favorably in dealings of love. So out of these three, which do you prefer, or which do you call honest?" In his answer, Krishna said, "My dear friends, persons who simply reciprocate the loving dealings of the other party are just like merchants. They give in loving affairs as much as they get from the other party. Practically, there is no question of love. It is simply self-interested. It is simply self-interested or self-centered business dealings. Even those without a tinge of love affairs are better than these merchants. Better than the first class is the second class man, who, in spite of the opposite party's contrariness, since such who love in spite of the opposite party's contrariness. Such sincere love can be seen when the father and mother love their children in spite of their children's neglect. The third class neither reciprocate nor neglect. They can be further divided into two classes. One compromises the self-satisfied, which do not require anyone's love. They are called Atmarama, which means they are absorbed in the thought of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and do not care whether one loves them or not. But another class comprises ungrateful men. They are called callous. The men in this group revolt against superior persons. For instance, a son, in spite of receiving all kinds of things from the loving parents, may be callous and not reciprocate. Those in this class are generally known as Guru Druha, which means they receive favors from the parents or spiritual master and yet neglect them. Krishna indirectly answered the questions of the gopis. Even those questions which implied that Krishna did not properly reciprocate in their dealings. In answer, Krishna said that he, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is satisfied. He does not require anyone's love, but at the same time, he said that he is not ungrateful. My dear friends, Krishna continued, you might be aggrieved by my words and acts, but you must know that sometimes I do not reciprocate my devotees' dealings with me. My devotees are very much attached to me, but sometimes I do not reciprocate their feelings properly in order to increase their love for me more and more. If I can very easily be approached by them, they might think, Krishna is so easily available. So sometimes I do not respond. If a person has no money, but after some time accumulates wealth and then loses it, he will think of the lost property 24 hours a day. Similarly, in order to increase the love of my devotees, sometimes I appear to be lost to them and increase the forgetting. And instead of forgetting me, they feel their love sentiments increase for me. My dear friends, do not think that for a moment that I have been dealing with you as I do with ordinary devotees. I know what you are. You have forsaken all kinds of social and religious obligations. You have given up all connections with your parents without caring for social convention and religious obligations. You have come to me and loved me, and I am so much obliged to you that I cannot treat you as ordinary devotees. Do not think that I was away from you. I was near to you. I was simply seeing how much you were anxious for me in my absence. Please do not try to find fault with me, because you consider me to be dear to you. Kindly excuse me, and if I have done anything wrong, I cannot repay your continuous love for me, even throughout the lifetimes of demigods and the heavenly planets. It is impossible to repay you or show you enough gratitude for your love. Therefore, please be satisfied by your own pious activities. You have displayed exemplary attraction for me, overcoming the greatest difficulties arising from family connections. Please be satisfied with your highly exemplary character, for it is not possible for me to repay my debt to you. The exemplary character of devotional service manifested by the devotees of Vrindavan is the purest type of devotion. It is enjoined with authoritative shastras that devotional service must be a haituki and a pratihata. This means that devotional service to Krishna cannot be checked by political or religious convention. The stage of devotional service is always transcendental. The gopis particularly showed pure devotional service toward Krishna, so much so that Krishna himself remained indebted to them. Lord Chaitanya said that the devotional service manifested by the gopis in Vrindavan excelled all other methods of approaching the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 32nd chapter of Krishna. Krishna returns to the gopis.
Nicely done.
I just thought it was interesting to repeat the analogy that Krishna gave, trying to explain his absence and why he's absent. It's not because he doesn't love us, if we want to talk about ourselves or talk about the gopis. He's telling the gopis this, but we can also think about it in our own life, how Krishna is dealing with each of us. So he was saying, just like he didn't want to be known as like, oh, I can get this, it's a cheap thing, Krishna is so available. He wanted the gopis to understand, like, if a person has no money but after some time accumulates wealth and then loses it, it's basically the same thing. Then he's going to be thinking, oh God, I lost all that money. He's always thinking about it. It says 24 hours a day. I mean, this is in the words of Krishna here. So similarly, he's talking, and this is all Krishna's analogies, it's pretty amazing. Similarly, in order to increase the love of my devotees, sometimes I appear to be lost to them, and instead of forgetting me, they feel their loving sentiments for me increase. So, my dear friends, do not think that for a moment I have been dealing with you as I do with ordinary devotees. I know what you are. And he goes on and on. So I would say the purport, and to put it in a nutshell, is that Krishna is there for us. He's not with he's there for us here. We're so fortunate because we have the holy names. He's there in his name. He's there in his form, in the Archa Vigraha. He's here for us every day. Whereas maybe the gopis, I don't know if what they did was they tried by remembering, but we took birth in this Kali Yuga after Krishna left. And there was no more Krishna on the planet. And then Lord Chaitanya came and gave us the easiest way to remember Krishna is by chanting his holy names. So we are even more fortunate, but we're super fortunate that Srila Prabhupada came, translated all of this, and he knew that what if I don't make it to translate all of the Bhagavatam. He did the first canto, but he also, in the early days, he did Krishna book, which is 10th canto. He wanted us to have this, which is why he put out the Krishna book quite early in the movement. So it shows that Srila Prabhupada's mercy, we all have Srila Prabhupada's mercy now. And we all have these books, and we just pick these books up just like today. Pick this book up and read it. It's just amazing how fortunate we can feel and how reassured we can feel that Krishna is telling us he's there. And he hasn't forgotten us. He's in our hearts as Super Soul. And because these gopis are like super advanced devotees and everything, he has super intimate pastimes with them. And he was sitting by their side. So we have the same treatment, a little bit, not exactly the same, but Krishna's in our heart, and Krishna's in the deities, and, we have these books to remember Krishna. So, yeah, all glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Yeah, that book was specially written after the devotees in like you were saying, they they did, it's there in that film that Yadabar put out. There's a little film within a film. They made a movie, Damodar and Narayan Brahm, and the two sisters, Ekiani and I forget her name, the other one. And they, they did this little movie about, one was dressed like Krishna and the other one was dressed like Radharani, and there was the gopis there. One of those gopis was Lakshmi Moni, actually, as a young woman. And Prabhupada was very concerned that maybe they were becoming sahaja, so he wanted them to have proper understanding. And that's what this was to protect us from sahaja. And now especially, when this thing with Yasida, devotees talking like that, Prabhupada didn't give us all the knowledge, he didn't tell you who you were, we can tell you that. This is all nonsense. And this Krishna book is protecting us from that nonsense. So Srila Prabhupada, we are very, very fortunate. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Rama.